Hello, I am Patrick Melfi from Schoeneck King, following up from today's coronavirus webinar regarding the OSHA advice that was issued on January 29th, Friday of last week. As a threshold issue, I think everybody should remember that OSHA made it clear that that guidance was not a standard. It was not anything that created a new legal requirement. It was advisory in nature. Many of the recommendations that came out were rehashes of prior CDC guidance with a heavy reliance on social distancing and face coverings and isolation and quarantine for suspected or confirmed cases. There were, however, a few unique things that came out, and I'll note them briefly. The agency recommends that one workplace coordinator be designated for all coronavirus questions from the employee base. Another recommendation was that the employer should set up an anonymous complaint procedure or question procedure for employees who would like to remain anonymous but raise coronavirus issues. They'd also like to make sure that everybody understands that the vaccine, when your workforce starts to become vaccinated, that those workers still have to wear face coverings, engage in social distancing, because at present, there's really no scientific evidence that the vaccine prevents transmission. That may change, but right now, if you have vaccinated workers, they have to follow all the rules about social distancing and face coverings and such. There were a lot of recommendations that came from the agency regarding HVAC systems and ventilation. This will be a developing issue, but some of what came out were interesting. The agency says that employers should encourage the use of open windows and airflow, and the use of fans to encourage airflow through a building, which is generally unhelpful in February in upstate New York, but when the weather gets better, that's one thing they recommend. Another few things regarding HVAC systems. They recommend disabling any demand-controlled ventilation system. They also recommend the implementation of what's called a MERV 13 or better, and that is a minimum efficiency reporting value for the air filters in the system. One of the other recommendations was the use of ultraviolet germicidal irradiation systems. Now, I don't know if any of these HVAC or ventilation system recommendations will make it into any final standard or guidance, but at present, it is important to watch what the agency does with their ventilation recommendations and whether they become more of a standard and less of a recommendation and more of a requirement. That's unknown at present, but we're keeping an eye on it.